Hello and welcome to Body and Mind Uncensored. We're your hosts, Kelli
and Taleese. Combining 26 years of nursing experience, we're dedicated to sharing our expertise in mental health and women's health with as many people as possible.
The topics discussed in this podcast are based on our educated opinions and real-life experience and should not replace advice from your healthcare team. Welcome back.
Hi, Kelli.
Hi, Taleese.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Good. Well, we have a very interesting and potentially exciting, something that all women will deal with at least some point in their life, topic for you today.
Yes. Let's go through some of those slang terms to see if everybody can guess what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Shark Week, Mother Nature,
riding the cotton pony,
the time of the month,
red badge of courage.
What about that big one when we were younger, on the rag?
On the rag. There are so many. There's the Red Sea, the monthly curse, or being on the blob. What did you find?
Checking into the Red Roof Inn.
I like that one. Checking into the Red Roof Inn.
Girl flu. Lady time.
We've got the Crimson Tsunami.
Oh. If you haven't guessed by now, we will be talking about menstruation. What are the other medical terms for it?
Menses.
Periods.
Let's talk about periods and hygiene and how that was for you and I. Because things have changed. Things are changing through time as far as the onset of menstruation for girls.
Yeah.
How old were you, Kelli?
I was 11.
And I think that's a pretty normal age right now.
Is it? Because
that's what I'm saying, yes.
I didn't know anybody my age when it started, and I was really scared.
How about your friends? Did you have friends that had started, or?
No. My chest started to develop earlier than most of my friends, and I definitely started my outflow very early.
Whatever term you want to choose. I still don't remember the first time, like my very first time. I don't remember that, but I do remember my daughter's first time and how bad I felt for her. Yeah. Do you remember your daughter's first time?
I don't remember her first time. I do remember my first time.
So we're kind of
I don't remember
opposite.
Her first time. But I had talked to her because it was such a traumatic experience for me that I talked to her well in advance and told her all the things and made sure that there were supplies and that she kind of knew what to do with it. And I was also a nurse by that time too. So
there you go. That's always
we talked about
helpful.
A lot of things when I was in nursing school, or
as
even
they came
after.
Up.
Yeah. STDs.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Those were big topics of conversation in my house.
Just
my kids probably hated me.
They're like, oh, great. What's mom studying this week?
Yeah.
Help.
So mine happened New Year's Eve.
Oh,
I remember.
Wow.
Yeah. And I locked myself in the bathroom and wadded up a bunch of toilet paper. And I was so embarrassed because it was my stepmom and my stepsister who were older and kind of new, and I think that my sister saw, because I threw my underwear away, and I think she saw them in the bathroom and told my stepmom, and that's when I had the talk about
when she talked to you about it.
By the way, it was so embarrassing.
It really was, and I think things are different. I know that before us, it was a lot different and a lot more taboo or quiet, or you didn't talk about it. But I still remember, I don't remember my first period, but I remember having to tell my mom that I started my period. And up until that time, it was probably, I'm not even kidding you, a year before I told her. And I was using like folded up toilet paper to use, like I didn't dare tell her. And so I wasn't using pads or tampons. I still remember that. And underwear, right? Like bled through my underwear. And for whatever reason, I felt like I had to get rid of them or just
because you didn't
time.
know, or you were embarrassed?
Embarrassed. I didn't dare talk to my mom about it.
And how old were you?
12.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were around the same age.
Yeah. But as soon as I told her about it, and which is real interesting because I have sisters. One of them is 9 months younger than me, and one of them's a year younger than her. And I don't know. And maybe she just developed a lot older than I did. And so maybe there definitely seemed to be more time in between us starting our periods than 9 months. So I don't know if I started early and she started late. But what I do remember when my daughter started hers is I had a hysterectomy recently. And I remember feeling guilty. We're thinking, oh my goodness, I just got a get out of jail free card for no more periods for the rest of my life. And here this poor girl was having her very first one. Yeah. And it's really hard to stay positive when you're like looking down this path of periods and uncomfortable for decades and decades.
Yeah. My daughter curses me every single month because I used to have the worst periods, the worst cramps, the worst side effects ever, and totally passed that
And so
down
she does now, huh? Yeah.
Yep.
My stepdaughters suffer from that. I didn't have a lot of like really crazy like endometriosis growing up. Did you have endometriosis?
I did. That was why I had my hysterectomy.
Did you find out that you had endometriosis? And does your daughter?
I don't know if Caitlin does. So I had my tubes tied originally back in, I don't even know, 2006, 2007. And when they were in there tying my tubes, they saw that I had endometriosis all over. And they did a bunch of lasering to remove it, but then nothing ever got better. So
were you still hoping to have more kids? Like at the time?
No, because I had my tubes tied.
Well, that's true. Done. Okay, you're right.
I was
that
done.
Was really silly. I guess I was wondering at the time why they didn't offer to do a hysterectomy. Is it because you were already put under and consented for having your tubes tied and...
Yes, that and they really frown upon going straight to a hysterectomy. Like they really want to try other things before they do that when you're having pain. And yeah. So they lasered everything when I was in there. And then I had my hysterectomy like 2011, 2010 because things were just getting so much worse.
Wow. I have a lot of questions about that. I want to talk about that, but let's back up to menstruation over the years. It used to be called, it was either the curse.
It is a curse. The curse of womanhood. Oh, that was another thing. My stepsister was like, "You're a woman now." And that was so awkward.
Well, this is a good thing to talk about then. Was there anything planned? Like, I know a lot of people, like families, if they've got daughters and girls, they plan this great big thing and they take them out and they do, like they go to a movie and they go to dinner and they celebrate their coming of age. Did your family have anything like that?
Not with me when I was little, and I did not do that with my girls. I didn't know that was a thing.
I don't think with when I started my period. No,
or when your daughter did.
My daughter did.
Did you have
I don't think
party?
so, but she had a friend. I remember she had a friend, and that was something they did in their family, was a big girl celebration, and they all went out, and which I think is kind of cool because it kind of opens up the door to open communication and knowing that, oh, here's all the women in my life that I respect and that I look up to, and they've been doing this. It'll be okay. We'll get through this.
Yeah.
So I kind of like it.
That is kind of cool. Definitely better than, congratulations, you're a woman now.
Or hiding and throwing away your underwear.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could talk for hours about the embarrassment of
well, here we are.
Through.
Do you have another? This is it. This is your hours.
Did you ever have those days in school? And I had really heavy flows.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to use Super Plus tampons. And
did you ever use two?
No.
I've never used two, but I've heard of people using two.
But I probably could have because I leaked through those things like crazy.
Fast.
And it got to the point where I had to wear a pad and a tampon. We used to call pads marshmallows, tampons torpedoes. And I used to ask my friends, can you see my marshmallow?
Can you see my marshmallow? That sounds so much better with you saying it than I was imagining.
You don't want to walk down the street and have people see your marshmallow. That's so embarrassing.
No, it's almost like a fupa. Mm-hmm. That's what it reminds me of. I don't ask anybody if they can see my fupa.
But the worst thing was when you didn't know it was coming and you bled through and you were wearing light colored pants and you're at school.
Oh, yeah.
Or
there's that, or waking up to it, right? Remember that? Waking up to it in the middle of the night, or in the morning and you've just bled all over. And now not only do you have to get yourself ready for school, you've got like all those other slang terms that we've been going through, like the crimson tsunami hit while you were sleeping. That's what I'll text you one morning.
I think
I'm going to be late.
The crimson tsunami. I think every single woman can relate to this topic and how embarrassing and those moments that they've had. I know my daughters have called me, can you bring me a pair of pants? Or I forgot a tampon, or I don't have this, or...
Yep. And at school, I'm going to be really vulnerable. This just popped into my mind. I remember the first time I wore a tampon, and like probably, hopefully a lot of people, it was in the girls' dressing room before PE, because I wasn't going to run with my marshmallow. I didn't know how I was going to do that. So I borrowed a tampon with no instructions, and I left the cardboard in, and I'm sure so many other girls have.
Yeah. Nobody tells you how to use it. You just get it out of the vending machine, or somebody hands it to you. You don't...
And you're like, and it's cardboard. Do they even make cardboard anymore?
They do. Yeah, it's not a demonstration. Now. I don't think even in sex ed, when we had the talk about menstruation,
Julie's story,
and what to expect, I don't think they even discussed.
Can we talk a minute?
Who?
Julie's story. So I grew up in a little town in Idaho. Maybe we were ahead of our times. It was the 5th grade maturation, where all the boys went out and had an extra recess, and the girls got to sit in the library or the classroom and listen to how our bodies were going to change. And then they gave us this book, and it was called Julie's Story, and it talked about her breasts developing and about her period and cramping and sex, and it was called Julie's Story. So you guys didn't get that?
No.
I wish I had that book.
And I'm jealous that you had yours during school, because we had to go in after school with our parents and sit in an auditorium. I forgot to mention,
our parents were there.
Half the auditorium was the girls, and then they blocked the other half off, and it was the boys, and they talked to each of our groups. Anyway, talk about Julie's story. Tell me about a book about Julie and how she went through all these things.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually Googling it right now, trying to see if I can find it. Yes, a little booklet about menstruation.
Interesting. Either I got it and I blocked it out.
You burned it.
Oh, yeah.
Who is this Julie?
Julie.
And why does she have to tell her story? She should be like Victoria and keep it a secret.
But yeah, there were not any instructions on how to use these items. Not at all.
No.
So
yeah. So what was your first time? Do you remember your first time using a tampon?
Marshmallow?
No, the tampon.
My stepmom would not buy me tampons. So I had to get them other places. I don't even remember the first time I used a tampon. It was always marshmallows until I got a little older. I would say I was probably 8th or 9th grade before I started using a tampon, and it's because I got it from a friend.
So let's talk about the taboo of tampons and what was her theory and what kept her from wanting you to use them.
I don't know. I was just told no. And I don't know if it was just because something would be entering my vagina, and that was like that precursor to
like it was going to take your virginity, right? Like it was going to break your hymen or something. I do think there was, and maybe it does. I mean, maybe we're all built differently, right? And maybe others' hymens are lower or higher or whatever, and so maybe it has happened. But that is something
I'm
wondering.
Friend who could never use one though, because she
couldn't get it up there.
Like she had to have her hymen surgically removed before she got married because there was no opening. But she had periods, so I don't. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Huh. That is interesting.
So it was a while before I got to use a tampon. What about you? Did you go right out the gates using them?
No, it was, like I said, it was the rolling over of the toilet paper and creating a pad. I do remember.
It's pretty ingenious for somebody who.
What else is there?
There's
right.
Yeah.
What else is there in Idaho? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, what did people use back in the day?
Well, funny you should ask. So they would call it bog moss. And it was an absorbent type of moss. And when I first saw that, I thought, moss, that's got to have some kind of critter in there. All I can think about is that down there, and just yikes. Like the amount of bacteria that probably grew.
And yeah.
So that was from the 1800s, obviously. And then after that, it went to like a cloth rag. And I think that's the same thing for diapers, right? People used to use like cloth diapers and you would wash them, and that makes sense. That makes sense for that period of time. Get it?
Period of time.
We've made leaps and bounds. I don't think there's been a lot of change with the tampon. I mean, come on. There's got to be something. But
they have cups now.
Cups.
Yes. So I did try a cup before I had my hysterectomy. It was really messy, though. Have you ever tried a cup?
I've tried. I could not figure it out.
I figured it out, but when you remove it,
that all comes like a tsunami.
Yeah, it's like you're keeping it all bottled up inside, and then you take it out, and it's not like absorbent like a tampon because it's not like cottony, it's plastic. I don't know. I never understood the cup thing. I used it a couple times to try to.
I know people love it, and I can see how it would be really great.
Yeah.
But I think I would be afraid like it would slip. Is it like that where it would slip and then all of that would come gushing out at once?
Luckily, that never happened to me, but I could see the fear in it.
Let's not forget those little tampons, those little white ones. What were they called?
Oh,
and you
without
had there
the
was
applicator.
Yes,
OB.
there was OB. That's what I was thinking it was, but that was like OB. Do they? I don't think they still have those. Hopefully they don't. But they're tampons without applicators.
Yeah.
And so you got to use your finger to push it up there as high as you could.
They were to save the environment.
Oh my goodness. Push your fingers up there, and then heaven forbid you be in a public bathroom. I still remember, I haven't had a period for over 10 years, and I can still remember the feel of a tampon slipping out.
Yeah.
And those OBs, if you couldn't get them up there past far enough, they would slip right out. Or even like when they would slip out anyway.
Feel like they're in the wrong spot.
Mm-hmm. And you could feel it. I have noticed that the average age for menstruation has decreased. So girls are having them younger. And I'm sure you've heard this, right? Like over the years. And they're saying that Hispanic origin can be an indicator for it. Diet.
For earlier?
Mm-hmm. So more nutrient dense food that girls eat, that can cause them. So it's even like a real good diet that can cause girls to start menstruation earlier.
And on the opposite side, I had a friend who had anorexia bulimia when we were younger, and she quit having her period altogether.
Yeah, I know eating disorders can completely shut down your growth mentally, physically. Like if people start starving themselves, they won't even go into puberty.
Yeah.
Until their body, that's like a secondary.
Yeah, it got to the point where they didn't think she'd even have babies. Luckily, she did.
So this is just like a menstrual cycle can change over the years and how it changes. So when you first start out, it's pretty heavy, irregular, painful, right? Like in your teenage years, when it's most inconvenient at school, most embarrassing, you're most vulnerable. And then in your 20s, it becomes more consistent. And you probably figure out your body by then. I would think by then you know your cycle, you know if you're going to use pads or tampons or both. So they say in your 30s, benign conditions like fibroids and polyps can appear. So that's what I think about is like ovarian cysts. Yeah, during your 30s. I'm sure it can happen anytime, but I think of that, like the benign conditions with fibroids and polyps. And then your 40s, the amount of estrogen produced by the ovaries may start to fluctuate. And then by 50s, most women will experience menopause. So there's just a little breakdown of what to expect through the decades.
Interesting. When does perimenopause start? Is that like 40s?
Less regular in your 40s. Ovarian function gradually declines. Menstruation stops permanently after 1 to 3 years of long and highly irregular periods. Cycles. That's another word we didn't talk about.
Oh, yes.
Cycles.
Cycle. Yep. Monthly cycle.
Monthly cycle. On average, women in the U.S. go through menopause at age 52. Here's some factors.
I was hoping that since I started early, that I might start.
That you'd be done. You have to have 10,000 periods in your lifetime, whether you started at 10 or...
I don't know. Did you ever get, like, can you tell when your monthly cycle is about to happen? Like, do you have body changes?
Even now that I don't have...
pain? Yeah. Like, do you still have your ovary?
I have one ovary.
Okay.
So we were talking about cysts and bursting. I had a cyst on one of my ovaries that I think was there from when my youngest, who's 21, I was having an ultrasound for her one day, and I specifically remember them talking about this cyst that was on my ovary and that it would probably just pop on its own. I didn't think anything about it until 2014. And I went down this long trail of removing organs, like appendix and gallbladder, and like one thing led to another is what I mean by that.
I don't need this organ anymore.
This one can go. And then there were my tonsils and my appendix. And no, but once they started down that path, they found this growth on my ovary. And so I always think of it as probably that cyst. So it was there for like 14 years, but it was huge and it encompassed my ovary and it had hair in it.
Oh, yeah. Those were fun when I was a surgical tech to remove. I always loved digging through them and finding all the hair in the teeth.
Yeah, I didn't have any teeth.
Yes.
Molar pregnancies, is that what they're called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was interesting. So, yeah, they removed that, and that's when they did my hysterectomy.
It's interesting that you said in your 20s that your periods will start to regulate.
Is that when yours didn't?
No, mine never did. Mine were always irregular. They would last forever or come and go as they wanted to. Super painful. But I always knew when I was going to start because I could feel myself ovulate.
Really?
And even to this day, I still get kind of those little twinges because I still have both my ovaries. So I'll get like little twinges on each side. It's weird. And my breasts will hurt for days. Like feel like you can't even touch them. Like they're bruised.
Really? I used to have that when I was having periods, but I haven't had that since having a hysterectomy. I do have cramping. Mm-hmm. And I think moodiness, right? I still think I have that.
You have mood swings. I don't think I ever did get PMS.
That's really lucky. I know for everybody it's different.
Nobody ever told me I was a bitch at a certain time.
They just avoided you. You're like, for some reason, I'm just all by myself.
Maybe. Why this week, every single month, am I avoided by everybody?
Alone. This is weird.
I don't think I ever had mood swings. But let's talk about that and why we have mood swings. Those hormones, right?
Oh my goodness. The influx of estrogen and progesterone, and same thing that happens when you have a baby and those rush of hormones, and why you can have postpartum depression right after or 6 months after. Our hormones are so little but do so much to us.
Well, your whole body is run by hormones. Yeah. Like I used to get really bad migraines and they just went away. I don't know why, but I always thought they were hormone related too.
So yeah, maybe you're going through menopause. Like when did they go away? I've had migraines my whole life too, but now that you mention it, it could really have been to do with like they've subsided since my hysterectomy.
I get them every once in a while, but I was having them daily for a long time and they would last forever. Like they would last for days. I had one once that lasted for 2 weeks when I was working at the hospital, Kelly. And I had to sit in the dark. And one of the doctors came in and he's like, "Why are you always sitting in the dark?" And ended up giving me a prescription for, I believe it was Topamax at the time. And that was the only thing that took that migraine away, and it was literally 2 weeks. But
that's just not fair.
Just the last several years I've noticed that they've kind of gone, so it's kind of nice,
right? Well, migraines could be a complete session all on its own, because I from 3 years old struggled from migraines and vomiting. In fact, I
way young.
have these daith piercings, maybe you've seen those. Really helped. They really did. I've tried those. I've been on Nurtec. So yeah, migraines are definitely, I feel, hormone related for a lot of people, stress related. I just wanted to talk, you said feeling if you could feel your period coming on. And so that's kind of like what we were talking about, right? So these are some factors that may contribute to earlier menstruation: industrialization, better nutrition, lower socioeconomic status, higher body fat percentage. So what I want to pause on that one right there, because let's talk about PCOS and how much there's so much estrogen in our fat, right? And so being overweight can increase that estrogen, which can cause heavier periods, or for women to have cysts. Back to the list: decreased physical activity, more calorically dense food, and environmental exposure to endocrine chemicals. EDCs. We should find out what EDCs are.
I wonder if that's like something chemicals in the environment, like in the water or your food, like hormones.
Maybe it's like growth hormones for cows and chickens and so EDC is endocrine disrupting chemicals. That makes sense. Maybe I should look and see what foods, or maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah, but where do you get them? Like,
Yep.
is it from your water, from your soil, from your food?
That's what we're going to find out right now. I can figure out how to work
Let's
the phone.
tell the audience where EDCs
What
come from.
food? So these EDCs accumulate in fatty tissues, so foods that are high in fat, such as meat, fish, eggs, dairy. Those may contain the EDC, which is the endocrine disrupting chemical. They can also be found in canned food, bottled water. EDCs can interfere with synthesis, action, and metabolism of sex steroid hormones, which can cause developmental and fertility problems, infertility, and hormone-sensitive cancers. EDCs have also been associated with weight gain, stimulation of fat cells, and predisposition for metabolic disorders such as type 2 diabetes. There you have it.
So basically,
Avoid plastic
everything that
containers.
you eat,
Avoid canned food. This is really scary. It's saying some
Become a
ways to
vegan.
reduce.
become a vegan.
It also says include consuming fresh and organic food, avoiding
Wow.
fast and processed food, and supplementing diet with vitamin C, iodine, and folic acid. Which, did you get that recommendation when you were having babies?
Folic
That
acid, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
because that prevents spina bifida.
Yeah. I wonder if that's still a thing.
It is.
Not spina bifida, but the folic acid.
It is definitely a
Good.
thing. Well, so EDCs, try to stay away from them, but it sounds like
Yeah.
it's in a lot of what we
Bottled
eat.
waters.
That's
Canned foods. Oh, yeah.
so
Yeah.
you
Just
can't.
read
There's
your
things that
labels.
you can't stay away from, but it is interesting to know that they can cause early
So many. Yeah.
periods.
Early periods, obesity, and I think it all goes hand in hand, right? Like the storage of fat. And yeah.
Interesting.
But let's talk real quick about how diet and hygiene and exercise, a part of menstruation, just how important it is,
Yes, hygiene is key,
especially that time of the month.
especially.
I mean, sometimes you can skip a day showering when you're not having a period, if you got to run out the door quick. But if you're on your period, you got to shower every day. Sometimes
That's-
twice if you have a blowout.
especially if you're wearing a marshmallow.
Yes. Yes.
I can't tell you all of those times when I wore a marshmallow, how many times a day I took a shower.
I can imagine.
it's
Do they still make
just-
the ones that wrap from your belly button all the way back to your spine?
I don't know.
I know
But
they
yeah,
do
I
for
always
post-
felt
for
like I was
after a
wearing
baby.
a diaper. I hated it.
They're
and
huge.
this was pre-wings, right? Like
Oh,
I didn't get the wings either. Those were
Pre-wings.
more expensive, so it would wrap around and what a mess.
I'm having some problems talking about this. It's been a long time since I've had a period, and
It's
you're
giving
bringing
me
up
PTSD.
Yes,
Yeah.
like period traumatic stress disorder. That's what the P stands for in that one.
Yes. Period traumatic.
Like
stress
you're
disorder.
reminding me of all the things of like walking and having to worry about it shifting and going back. Let's talk about these marshmallows, how they wouldn't stay stuck to your underwear
Yeah.
perfectly, and they would slide forward, and then you would leak from behind, and then if they slid back, you would leak forward. And so you were, in my opinion, I was constantly like pushing it.
Yep.
Or like when I'd like if I'd sleep on my back, I'd have to make sure that the pad was further back there. So it, oh my
Yep.
goodness.
Or you walked and it shifted left and then it shifted
Yes.
right and then it was just a mess. And
Oh, or
it was all over everything. That is why I showered. And dry blood,
Does
not
come out.
fun.
It stains so terribly. You couldn't wear white pants. I think still to this day, I'm traumatized by wearing white, right? Because that's what you grow up with. It's like, I can't wear white. I might start my period.
Or
I think
any
I still
light
have
color.
that.
Doesn't even khaki, anything
Yes.
light is scary.
That's why black is so popular. It's
Well,
so
black
in.
is slimming.
It's the fix-all.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yep. Traumatic. Telling you.
Well, what should we wind up with? I mean, I feel like there's so much to discuss with periods. We haven't even scratched the surface on PMS and missing school and being curled up in a little ball, which luckily it sounds like neither one of us really.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I wasn't listening. I'm so sorry.
I had heating pads. I would lay in a ball with my hands fisted, pushing on my ovaries and my whole abdomen because it hurt so bad. Yeah, it was bad.
So when you say no PMS, you mean like
Like, I didn't have the mood swings.
just the
But
cramping?
I had major,
Not just.
major cramping.
Well, I did see, this is a kind of a random comment, but it is nice to see that birth control is no longer just over the counter. I mean, that's something we could talk about too, is birth control with how it's changed over the years. And
you mean you don't have to have a prescription for it anymore. You can just get it over the counter. Yeah, you never could do that before.
So were you questioning if that was the commercial I saw or if that's true? Have you seen that?
That birth control is over the counter now?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it never was before. You always had to have a prescription.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. No, that's what I mean. Like, a lot of things haven't changed over time. Like, yeah, there have been some great changes made to the tampon with a plastic applicator or any applicator for that matter. But that is one of the biggest things is why, I mean, I get it. I get that it's hormone altering.
But nobody's going to abuse birth control pills.
No, listen, this is what I would have done if it were over the counter. I was never on birth control. Did you know that? Never did I take the pill. Never have I been on birth control. But that's what happens when you get married young and you marry somebody who needs to have kids because they're older. This is what I would have done. I would have not stopped taking it. I wouldn't have had the self-control to be like, okay,
you don't have
I get to take the period start. You don't have to.
No,
like, you think that's healthy?
Well, when I was having all of my issues before I had my hysterectomy with the pain and everything, my doctor just said, just keep taking it. Don't stop for your week. Just keep taking it because then you won't have that cycle.
Really? See, I don't know about birth control. I just thought you had to so that it would slough off. But I guess sometimes your body doesn't have a period and it still all sits up there just fine.
Yeah,
Did you ever?
They instructed. And sometimes they said you could even go off for a couple days and then get back on.
Did you ever do that? And then, and so when you did have a period, was it just completely off the charts?
So it always was, and it didn't really help because I was still having them, like even when I wasn't supposed to. So that was another reason why I ended up with the hysterectomy, because nothing was helping.
Working how it, wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. Yeah. Something else that we haven't scratched the surface on is sex during your period.
Ugh.
And when you're ending your period and you have to like turn your body inside out with that last dry tampon that your whole insides come out with, right? Do you not remember that feeling?
Yes.
Like you're pulling in it and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
TMI maybe, but I hate
did
that.
not love sex during my period. To me, that was the most disgusting thing because it was already dirty.
Yeah.
But then you're doing that and you're getting blood all over the place.
I think because it's harder to get pregnant, right? Because you're having your period and your body's sloughing that off, and that's when you're supposed to be less likely to get pregnant. So yeah, I can understand that, but still, as a woman, like that is, maybe some women like it. I've never liked it. I hate the fact that we're putting something up there to stop the bleeding and then other things in there. And to me, it's just like Grand Central Station to have sex during a period.
Yeah.
Like next train arrives in 10 minutes.
Well, kudos to the women who like it. I personally did not, but everybody's entitled to
each their own
opinion and what they like and enjoy. I've heard that it feels more
extra
intense.
Lubrication. I've
heard that it feels better or more intense for women, but for me, I was just so self-conscious that I was making a mess. I think that was
there's definitely more lubrication.
Definitely.
If you ever need that.
Do you have any words of wisdom from our amazing Taleese?
And some days life is just hard, and some days are just rough, and some days you just gotta cry before you move forward, and all of that is okay. Just keep going. I like that. That's simple.
Like that. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time out of your day to talk with me again.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, please let us know what you think about our podcast.
Yeah. Give us some feedback, good or bad. We'd love to hear it.
We also want to hear topics that you might want to hear as well.
Yeah, what's on your mind? What's bothering you as a woman or as a human? Let's talk about it. Let's vent.
And if you like what you're hearing, share it with a friend.
And like and subscribe.
Have a great rest of your day. If you or someone you know has thoughts of hurting themselves or others, please text or call 988. They will direct you to someone in your community that can help. You can also call 911 in an emergency.
Remember, you never know what someone else is going through. Sending peace and love to all. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook.